Nico felt the hum of the ship beneath his feet as he prepared to step onto the alien planet. The landing was smooth, and the ramp opened with a soft hiss. Before him stretched a landscape unlike anything he had ever seen. The sky shimmered with faint green and purple hues, and the air was warm but carried a strange metallic scent. Towering trees with glowing leaves swayed even though there was no wind. Crystals floated in midair, reflecting the sunlight like tiny stars. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, his boots crunching softly against the ground. Every step seemed to echo in the quiet, peaceful world. His mission was simple but dangerous. He had come to study the planet and its life forms for humanity. They needed new energy sources and new knowledge to expand safely into space. Nico had trained for years for moments like this, but seeing it in reality was different. The beauty and strangeness of this planet filled him with awe. As he walked, he noticed small creatures moving in the bushes. Some had translucent wings that sparkled like jewels, and others had long tails with glowing tips. Nico paused and observed them. None seemed hostile, but they were clearly cautious. He kept his hands visible and moved slowly, trying not to scare them. The creatures watched him for a while, then disappeared into the forest. Nico continued deeper into the alien wilderness. Soon, the glowing trees gave way to an open area filled with floating crystals. The light from the crystals cast rainbow patterns across the ground. He walked carefully, not wanting to disturb the fragile ecosystem. As he admired the beauty around him, he noticed a structure in the distance. It was enormous, taller than any building he had seen on Earth. Made of a material that shimmered and shifted colors, his heart raced. He had found what he had hoped for. This must be the palace of the alien queen, Zyra. According to the data sent by the reconnaissance drones, Zyra was the leader of a powerful civilization. She was known for her intelligence, strength, and strict rules. Most humans who encountered her were warned to stay away. But Nico was not just any human. He carried a message of peace and curiosity. As he approached the palace, he noticed movement near the entrance. The ground seemed to ripple, and a tall figure emerged. It was Zyra. Her skin was a soft silver, and her eyes glowed like molten gold. She was taller than Nico had imagined, with long limbs and an aura that demanded respect. She moved slowly, her gaze fixed on him. Then something unexpected happened. Zyra crouched down. She lowered herself to the ground as if she were bowing or showing submission. Nico froze. He had read about alien behavior, but nothing described a queen crouching before a human. His first thought was danger. Maybe she was preparing to attack. He instinctively raised his hands in a non-threatening gesture. The alien queen did not move aggressively. She stayed low, her eyes studying him. Nico felt a mix of fear and curiosity. He tried to understand what this gesture meant. Was it respect? Was it fear? Or was it some signal he could not interpret? He took a slow step forward. "Hello," he said softly, hoping she could understand his tone. "I come in peace." There was no answer. Zyra's eyes did not leave his face. She made a soft sound, almost like a hum. Nico watched carefully. He remembered that communication could be more than words. He lowered himself slightly, mirroring her posture just a little, to show that he meant no harm. Zyra tilted her head. For a moment, Nico thought she might disappear into the forest. But instead, she stayed. He realized that her crouching was not fear. It was a gesture of something he had never seen before. He had studied alien cultures, but some behaviors could only be understood through observation. This was one of those moments. He slowly moved closer, keeping his hands visible. The closer he got, the more he could see the details of her form. Her skin reflected the sunlight in soft patterns, and faint lines ran across her arms and chest, like living tattoos. Her eyes were intelligent, watching him carefully. Nico felt a strange connection, as if she were trying to communicate without words. A sound came from behind him. He turned and saw a figure approaching quickly. It was Kira, one of Zyra's guards. Kira was taller than most humans, with dark blue skin and strong limbs. She held a long staff that shimmered with energy. Kira's eyes were sharp and alert. She stopped a few steps from Nico and spoke in a language he could not understand. Nico raised his hands higher. "I do not want to fight," he said. He activated his translator device. A soft voice came from the speaker. "I am Nico. I am here to study and learn. I mean no harm to your people." Kira's staff lowered slightly, but she did not relax completely. She motioned toward Zyra, and the alien queen made another soft hum. Nico realized that Zyra's crouch was not just respect. It was a signal. She was telling her guard to observe him, to consider his intentions before making any decisions. The tension in the air was thick. Nico felt the weight of it. One wrong move could trigger a fight. He stayed calm, breathing slowly. He looked around and noticed other small figures emerging from the palace. They were observing him carefully but did not move aggressively. Nico took a small step forward and extended his hand slightly, a universal gesture of peace. Zyra's eyes widened, and she tilted her head again. He did not know if she understood, but the gesture seemed to have an effect. Kira lowered her staff further, and the other figures moved back slightly, giving him space. Nico realized that this moment was important. It was not just about him. It was about the first contact between humanity and a powerful alien civilization. Every action, every gesture mattered. He had to show courage, respect, and intelligence. He spoke again. "I wish to learn about your world. I wish to understand your people. I want to share knowledge that can help both our worlds." Zyra stayed crouched for a long time. Then, slowly, she straightened one arm and touched the ground lightly. It was a gesture of acknowledgement. Nico felt a surge of relief. She had accepted his presence, at least partially. Kira finally spoke through the translator device. Her voice calm but firm. "You may follow, human. Stay respectful. Do not touch anything without permission." Nico nodded. "Thank you." He took careful steps toward the palace, his eyes never leaving Zyra. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had passed the first test simply by arriving with respect and patience. But he knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The palace doors opened silently as they approached. Inside, light reflected off smooth walls that seemed alive, changing colors softly. The air was filled with a faint, pleasant scent. Unlike anything Nico had smelled on Earth, he felt like he had stepped into another world. One that was both beautiful and mysterious. Zyra walked ahead, her steps graceful and controlled. Nico followed at a safe distance. Kira stayed close to him, still alert but no longer aggressive. The other figures in the palace observed quietly. Every movement Nico made was noted, every word he said measured. They reached a large chamber with high ceilings and a floor made of smooth crystal. Light from the floating crystals above cast patterns across the walls. Nico could see that this room was important, possibly a council chamber or meeting hall. Zyra stopped at the center and crouched again, this time in a gesture that seemed ceremonial. Nico realized that she was not crouching out of fear or weakness. It was a cultural expression, a way to show consideration and patience. He bowed his head slightly in return, showing his understanding. The chamber was quiet except for the soft hum of the crystals. Zyra finally spoke in a language Nico could not understand. He listened carefully, then activated the translator device. A soft voice repeated her words in human language. "You are brave to come here. You are cautious and respectful. We will observe you." Nico felt a sense of accomplishment. He had survived the first encounter with the alien queen. He had not fought. He had not threatened. And he had shown respect. That was enough to earn her attention and consideration. He knew this was only the beginning. The planet held many mysteries, and Zyra's people were powerful and intelligent. Nico would need all his skill, knowledge, and courage to continue his mission. But for now, he allowed himself a small moment of relief and wonder. He had made contact. He had been accepted. The alien queen remained crouched, her eyes fixed on him. Nico understood that her gaze was not just observation. It was a silent challenge, a question of whether humanity could live up to the respect she had shown. He nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement and commitment. The first step had been taken. The journey had begun, and Nico knew that this world, this queen, and the strange beauty around him would change everything he thought he knew about life in the galaxy. Nico followed Zyra and Kira deeper into the palace. The walls shifted colors softly as they moved, creating an ever-changing pattern that was both beautiful and disorienting. Nico tried to remain calm, keeping his hands visible and his steps slow. Every moment felt tense. The palace was alive in a way he had never seen before. The air shimmered slightly, and he could hear soft sounds, almost like whispers, echoing through the halls. Kira walked just behind him, her staff glowing faintly. She spoke occasionally in a low tone, words Nico could not understand. Zyra led the way with quiet authority, her eyes occasionally glancing back at him. It was clear that Nico was allowed to follow, but only because Zyra had chosen to let him. He felt a mix of excitement and fear. One wrong move could end this delicate trust. As they reached a large chamber, Nico noticed other beings inside. They were smaller than Zyra, with greenish skin and multiple eyes. Their forms were strange but graceful. They seemed curious about Nico, whispering to one another in their alien language. Nico tried to remain calm. He knew that humans often reacted poorly to the unknown, but he had trained for encounters like this. Zyra stopped in the center of the chamber and crouched once again. This time, it was different. She lowered herself not just to show respect, but as a way to signal the others. Nico realized that the small aliens in the room responded immediately, their posture shifting to show deference. They clearly respected Zyra, but they also seemed wary of him. Nico took a careful step forward. He activated his translator device. "I am Nico. I am here to learn and to help if I can. I mean no harm." His voice sounded soft in the vast chamber, but the translator amplified it clearly. The smaller aliens paused and looked at each other. Some seemed confused, others cautious. One of them stepped forward. Its multiple eyes blinked rapidly as it studied Nico. Then it spoke, and the translator converted its words. "Why does your leader allow you here? Humans are unpredictable." Nico thought carefully. "I come in peace. I respect your queen and your people. I want to learn from you, not harm you." The alien considered his words. "We have seen humans before. Many bring fear. Many bring war. Why should we trust you?" Nico felt the weight of their doubt. He knew this was not personal. These aliens had likely faced threats before, and humans had a reputation in the galaxy. He took a slow breath. "Trust is earned, not given. I cannot ask you to believe me immediately. I can only show my intentions through my actions." Zyra observed quietly from her crouched position. Her golden eyes reflected faint light, and Nico could sense that she was considering his words. Kira's grip on her staff relaxed slightly, but her eyes never left him. The room felt alive with tension, and Nico knew that every gesture mattered. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. One of the aliens, an elder with gray markings on its skin, moved closer to Nico. It spoke through the translator. "If you are truthful, you will follow our customs. You will not touch what is not given to you. You will respect the boundaries of this place." Nico nodded. "I understand. I will follow your rules. I want to learn everything I can without causing harm." The elder studied him for a long moment. Then it motioned toward a series of doors at the far end of the chamber. "Your first test is to understand, to walk where you are allowed and to see what you may. Follow the path and observe. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not touch unless given permission." Nico bowed slightly in acknowledgement. He felt a thrill of both fear and excitement. This was the first real step toward earning their trust. He followed the path indicated by the elder, moving carefully. The walls shifted colors around him, reflecting patterns that made it hard to judge distances. He concentrated on his steps, focusing on each footfall. Along the path, he saw rooms filled with strange items. Some were machines that hummed softly. Others were organic shapes, like plants, but with movements and intelligence. Nico observed each item carefully, taking notes in his mind. He resisted the urge to touch or examine too closely. He knew that patience was more important than curiosity at this moment. As he walked, a small creature appeared beside him. It was tiny, with translucent wings and eyes that glowed softly. It made a soft chirping sound, tilting its head as if curious. Nico froze, then lowered his hand slowly. The creature did not move away. Instead, it hovered close, studying him. He realized that even small acts of respect were noticed in this place. Suddenly, a soft voice came from his translator. "Why does she crouch for you?" Nico glanced around. It was the elder, speaking again as he approached. "It is unusual for our queen to show respect first. Why does she lower herself to a human?" Nico thought carefully. In human culture, we respect those who show wisdom and caution. I think she may see something in me, perhaps the desire for peace. She may recognize that I am not a threat. The elder blinked with its many eyes. Perhaps, or perhaps she is testing you. In our culture, gestures carry meaning. A crouch may show respect, but it may also show caution or expectation. You must be careful not to misread her actions. Nico nodded. He realized that understanding Zyra and her people would take more than words. He would need to observe, to act with patience, and to show that humanity could be trusted. He felt a mix of nervousness and determination. This was not just about survival. It was about proving that humans could live up to the respect they were shown. As he continued along the path, he encountered more of Zyra's people. Each interaction was cautious. Some watched silently. Others spoke through the translator, asking questions about Earth, about his people, about why he had come. Nico answered carefully, never exaggerating, never threatening. He spoke of humanity's desire to explore, to learn, and to cooperate. He noticed that Zyra watched from a distance. She did not speak, but her golden eyes followed his every move. Occasionally, she crouched slightly, signaling approval or attention. Nico realized that she was teaching him without words, guiding him through her people's culture. He felt a growing respect for her intelligence and patience after hours of walking and observing. Nico reached the final chamber of the path. It was smaller, more intimate, with a soft glowing floor and walls that reflected faint light. Zyra stood in the center, straightening from her crouch. Her presence was powerful and calm. Nico approached slowly, bowing slightly in respect. Zyra's voice came through the translator. "You have observed well. You have followed our customs. You have not caused harm. This is a beginning." Nico felt relief and pride. He had navigated the first test without incident, showing respect and patience. But he knew this was only the start. The real challenge would come when he had to prove the intentions of his people, not just himself. Kira stepped forward and lowered her staff. "You may rest for now. Observe, learn, and reflect. Your next challenge will determine whether we can trust humans fully." Nico nodded. He felt a surge of hope. He had made contact. He had survived the first test, and he had begun to understand the depth of Zyra's culture and the care she took in dealing with other beings. As he sat quietly in the chamber, he reflected on the day's events, the beauty of the palace, the complexity of the alien culture, and the intelligence of Zyra had left him in awe. He realized that humans had much to learn, but also much to offer. Through patience, courage, and respect, bridges could be built across the galaxy. Outside, the glowing forests of the planet shimmered softly. Nico could see the floating crystals reflecting light like tiny stars. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new lessons. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of wonder and peace. He had arrived, he had been accepted, and he had begun a journey that would change everything he knew about humanity and the universe. The next morning, Nico awoke to a soft glow coming through the palace walls. The light shifted slowly, creating gentle patterns on the floor. He felt a sense of anticipation. Today, Zyra had told him, would be the true test. He would not only show his respect, but also prove that humans could think, act, and adapt in ways that reflected courage and intelligence. He followed Kira through the halls once again. The palace was quieter than yesterday. The soft hum of energy from the walls and crystals surrounded them, creating a feeling of calm but also alertness. Nico wondered what kind of challenge awaited him. Zyra had said little, only instructing him to observe, to act carefully, and to show that he could be trusted. Finally, they reached a large chamber with a high ceiling. The walls were smooth and shimmered with light that shifted colors softly. In the center of the room, a doorway opened into a dark cavern. Crystals along the walls of the chamber glowed faintly, casting light on a path that led down into the unknown. Zyra crouched slightly, her golden eyes fixed on Nico. The translator device converted her words. The test is simple in words but difficult in action. You must retrieve a crystal of pure energy from the cavern. It is dangerous. Many who try fail, but the crystal is vital. It will show whether you are careful, brave, and thoughtful. Only then will we consider humanity trustworthy. Nico nodded. He felt a mix of excitement and fear. This was no ordinary task. The cavern could hold dangers he could not anticipate. He remembered what he had learned in training. Observation, planning, and respect for the environment were key. He also knew that rushing could lead to disaster. Kira motioned for him to follow. She did not accompany him into the cavern, but stayed at the entrance to observe. Nico stepped cautiously onto the path. The walls of the cavern glowed faintly with crystals embedded in the rock. Shadows moved in the corners, and he could hear faint rustling sounds. He kept his hands visible and moved slowly. As he ventured deeper, he saw strange creatures lurking among the crystals. Some had long, thin bodies with glowing eyes. Others had shells that reflected light like mirrors. Nico paused and studied them. He remembered Zyra's instruction: respect the creatures, do not harm them. He slowly sidestepped to avoid disturbing them, observing their movements carefully. Suddenly, a creature darted toward him. It was small but fast, with bright eyes and sharp claws. Nico froze for a moment, then remembered the training. He did not run or attack. Instead, he held his ground calmly, making himself look less threatening. The creature stopped a few steps away, tilted its head, then retreated. Nico exhaled slowly. Patience and calmness had kept him safe. The path led to a large chamber within the cavern. In the center floated the crystal he had been sent to retrieve. It glowed with pure energy, casting soft light across the walls. Nico felt awe and respect for its beauty. He also felt the weight of responsibility. Taking it carelessly could be dangerous. He studied the surroundings carefully. The floor near the crystal was uneven, and faint tremors in the ground suggested that traps or dangers could exist. He noticed a pattern in the way the shadows moved across the walls. It seemed that the cavern itself was alive, reacting to movement. Nico realized that brute force or speed would not help. He needed patience and cleverness. He slowly stepped forward, testing each step before fully committing. The light from the crystal reflected on his suit, creating patterns that helped him see the safest path. He reached the final step and crouched slightly, mirroring Zyra's gesture of respect he had learned the day before. The crystal's glow seemed to respond to his careful movements, brightening softly as he approached. When he reached the crystal, he paused. It floated above a pedestal of rock, shimmering with energy. He could feel its power even from a distance. Nico extended his hand slowly, careful not to disturb the energy too quickly. As he touched it lightly, the crystal emitted a soft hum, but nothing dangerous happened. His careful approach had worked. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the cavern. A large creature emerged from the shadows. It was taller than Nico, with sharp claws and glowing eyes. It moved quickly toward him, blocking the path back to the entrance. Nico's heart raced. He had not expected a direct challenge. He remembered what Zyra had taught him through observation. Bravery was not about attacking blindly. It was about thinking, reacting, and showing respect. He did not try to fight the creature. Instead, he stepped back slightly, showing that he meant no harm. He spoke softly, though the translator device would not reach this part of the cavern. His calmness, he hoped, would show that he was not a threat. The creature paused, its head tilting as it studied him. Nico noticed its movements were patterned. It responded to gestures, not aggression. Slowly, he mimicked a small crouch, lowering his body slightly while keeping his hands visible. The creature watched, then slowly stepped aside. Nico exhaled with relief. His patience and understanding had worked. He carefully lifted the crystal from its pedestal. Its light filled the cavern, illuminating every corner. Nico could feel the energy, but it did not harm him. He held it with care, making sure not to disrupt the balance of the cavern. The creatures watched silently, and for a moment, it seemed as if the entire world was observing him, with the crystal in hand. He began the careful journey back. Every step was measured. He avoided touching walls or disturbing creatures. The large creature that had blocked his path earlier watched him, then moved aside, allowing him to pass. Nico felt a surge of respect for the creatures of this planet. They were intelligent and cautious, just like their queen. Finally, he reached the entrance of the cavern. Kira and Zyra were waiting. Zyra crouched slightly as he approached, her golden eyes observing him closely. Nico extended the crystal toward her. She reached out and touched it lightly. A soft hum filled the air, as if acknowledging the successful completion of the task. Zyra spoke through the translator. "You have shown caution, intelligence, and respect. You did not harm what was living. You did not act recklessly. This is proof of human potential. You have earned our observation and our consideration." Nico felt a rush of pride. He had passed the first real test, not by fighting or showing strength, but by using patience, cleverness, and respect. Kira lowered her staff fully, a sign of acceptance. The smaller aliens in the chamber watched silently, their expressions showing a mix of curiosity and approval. Zyra's eyes softened slightly. She crouched fully again, this time as a gesture of mutual respect. Nico mirrored the movement, showing that he understood. In that moment, a silent bond seemed to form between them. He realized that courage was not just about physical ability. It was about understanding, patience, and the willingness to respect life in all its forms. Zyra gestured toward a smaller chamber nearby. "You will rest here. Tomorrow, you will face another challenge, one that will test not only your courage, but also your compassion. The path of trust is long, human, but you have begun it well." Nico entered the chamber carefully. It was simple but comfortable, with soft glowing walls and a small platform to rest on. He set the crystal down gently. As he looked around, he reflected on the test. The creatures of the cavern had been dangerous, but they had also been intelligent and responsive. His careful approach had turned potential threats into allies. He realized that this was the essence of the challenge. Zyra was teaching him that humans could achieve greatness not through force alone, but through understanding, respect, and empathy. Nico felt a growing sense of responsibility. Humanity had much to prove, and he was at the forefront of that opportunity. As he rested, he thought about his home planet. Earth was full of humans, many brave, many curious, but also many careless or reckless. He knew that his actions here could influence how humans were viewed across the galaxy. He felt a deep sense of pride and a quiet determination. He would show that humans could be noble, courageous, and wise outside the palace. The alien sky shimmered softly. Nico could see the floating crystals and glowing forests of the planet. He knew that tomorrow would bring new tests and new lessons. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had succeeded in the first trial. He had shown that humans could think, act carefully, and respect life. He closed his eyes and rested, feeling the energy of the crystal and the quiet strength of the palace around him. He knew that this was only the beginning. The true challenges lay ahead, but he was ready. He would face them with courage, patience, and respect. And in doing so, he would begin to prove the true potential of humanity. The next morning, Nico awoke to soft light streaming through the glowing walls of the palace chamber. The soft hum of the palace seemed calmer than yesterday, almost welcoming. Today, Zyra had said, would be a day of understanding and connection. After proving his courage and intelligence, Nico would now face a test of patience and empathy. He felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Kira led him through the palace halls once again. The corridors were quiet, filled with the faint glow of the living walls. Small creatures peered curiously from corners, but none approached too closely. Nico had learned patience yesterday. He walked carefully, mindful of every step, keeping his hands visible and moving slowly. Every creature and every gesture mattered. Zyra waited for him in a large chamber filled with soft, floating lights. She crouched slightly as he entered, her golden eyes observing him. Nico bowed slightly in respect. The gesture was now familiar, a silent language between them. Zyra's voice came through the translator. Today, you will walk among my people and learn. Observation is important, but so is understanding emotion and intention. You will see not only our world, but our hearts. Nico nodded. He followed Zyra as she moved gracefully through a door that led to a courtyard outside the palace. The courtyard was unlike anything he had seen. Lush plants glowed softly in the air, floating in organized patterns. Streams of water ran along invisible channels, and small creatures moved among the plants in harmony. The air smelled fresh, with a faint sweetness. Zyra crouched at the edge of a small stream, pointing toward the plants. Nico realized she wanted him to observe, to notice even the smallest details. He leaned down, studying the way the creatures moved among the floating flowers. They interacted with one another carefully, never disturbing the balance. It was clear that this planet valued harmony and respect above all else. A small creature approached Nico, its translucent wings fluttering softly. It looked at him with bright eyes. Nico lowered his hand slowly. The creature tilted its head, watching him. He remembered Zyra's lessons: respect life, do not rush, observe carefully. He spoke softly. I will not harm you. The creature chirped and hovered closer, as if sensing his sincerity. Zyra crouched beside him, observing silently. Nico could feel her presence as both powerful and gentle. He realized that she was teaching him by example. Her actions carried meaning, showing patience, caution, and respect. He mirrored her posture, understanding that this was more than observation. It was about connection. They moved together through the courtyard. Zyra stopped at a large pool filled with shimmering water. Small fish-like creatures glided just below the surface, their scales reflecting light like tiny stars. Nico knelt beside the pool, careful not to disturb the water. Zyra made a soft gesture, and a fish swam closer to him. Nico extended his hand slowly, and the creature nudged it lightly before swimming away. He smiled quietly. This small moment of trust felt important. Zyra watched him, her golden eyes reflecting pride. She crouched fully, then extended one hand toward him. Nico reached out, touching her hand gently. It was a gesture of mutual respect, a silent bond forming between human and alien. Kira watched from a distance, her staff lowered. She had been cautious of Nico, but now she seemed to understand that his actions were sincere. Other members of Zyra's people began to emerge, observing quietly. Some approached, curious about him. Nico greeted them with soft gestures, careful not to startle anyone. His calmness seemed to inspire trust. Zyra spoke through the translator. You have shown patience and respect. You understand without words. You observe without harming. This is rare. It is the essence of what we value. Nico felt a deep sense of pride. He had learned the first lesson of connection, empathy. Understanding others' feelings and intentions was as important as courage and intelligence. He realized that humans often overlook this, focusing on strength or technology. Here, on this planet, connection and respect were the highest forms of power. The day continued with Zyra guiding Nico through different parts of the palace and courtyard. They visited gardens filled with plants that moved subtly, responding to light and sound. They observed creatures interacting in ways that seemed almost like games or rituals. Nico took careful notes in his mind, learning to understand the balance and harmony of this world. At one point, they encountered a young alien child, no taller than Nico's knee. The child seemed frightened by his presence, hiding behind a larger guardian. Nico lowered himself slowly to the child's level, keeping his hands open and visible. He spoke softly, I mean no harm. I am your friend. The child hesitated, then peeked out from behind the guardian. Nico remained still, giving the child time to decide. Slowly, the child stepped closer, curiosity overcoming fear. Nico smiled gently. The guardian nodded, recognizing his patience and care. Zyra crouched beside him, her gesture showing approval. Nico realized that compassion was just as important as courage in building trust. Later, they reached a chamber where Zyra's council members gathered. The chamber was filled with glowing walls and floating lights. The council watched Nico carefully, some skeptical, some curious. Zyra crouched at the center, gesturing toward him. He bowed slightly, showing respect. One council member spoke through the translator. You have proven intelligence and courage, but understanding emotion is difficult. Many humans fail here. Why should we trust you and your people? Nico thought carefully. Because we are capable of learning. We are capable of respect and courage, yes, but also empathy. We can understand and honor the lives of others. I show my intentions through actions, not words alone. The council considered his words. Zyra's eyes glowed softly, reflecting approval. She crouched fully, signaling that his answer was accepted. Nico felt a mixture of relief and pride. He had not only survived the challenge of courage, but had shown understanding and care. Qualities that his people sometimes overlooked. As the day ended, Zyra led him back to the courtyard. The floating lights dimmed softly, and the creatures settled into quiet patterns. Zyra crouched beside Nico once again. You have learned patience, observation, and empathy. These are the qualities that build trust. You have begun to understand the essence of our world. Nico bowed slightly. Thank you. I will continue to learn and show respect. I want humans to live up to this trust and honor. Zyra's eyes reflected a soft warmth. Then you will walk the path of connection. Tomorrow, you will face a test that combines all you have learned: courage, intelligence, and empathy. Only then will the bond between our peoples begin fully. Nico settled into the chamber for the night, reflecting on the day's lessons. He had begun to understand Zyra and her people, not just as aliens, but as intelligent beings with culture, emotion, and wisdom. He realized that humans often rush to conquer or dominate, but here, the greatest power was respect and understanding. As he drifted to sleep, he thought about the bond forming between himself and Zyra. The Queen's crouch, once mysterious, had become a symbol of mutual respect. He understood that true strength was not in force alone, but in the ability to connect, empathize, and inspire trust. Outside, the planet's sky shimmered with soft light. Floating crystals glowed gently, and the forest beyond the palace whispered with movement. Nico knew that tomorrow's challenge would be the most difficult yet, but he felt ready. He had learned to observe, to understand, and to act with care. He would face the next test with courage, intelligence, and empathy, and he would continue to build the bond that could unite humans and Zyra's people. The journey was far from over, but Nico felt a quiet confidence. He had proven bravery. He had shown intelligence. And now, he had begun to understand the hearts of a people unlike any he had ever known. The bond was forming, slowly but surely, and with it, the potential for humans to be respected and trusted in the galaxy. The morning air of the palace courtyard was filled with soft light, and the floating crystals shimmered gently. Nico stood beside Zyra, feeling the weight of the past days. He had faced challenges, learned the customs of her people, and shown courage, intelligence, and empathy. Today, he would complete his journey on this planet and solidify the bond between humans and Zyra's people. Zyra crouched slightly, as she had done every day since his arrival. Her golden eyes studied him carefully. Nico bowed his head in respect, understanding the meaning of her gesture. It was not fear or submission, but trust and acknowledgement. He had come as a visitor, yet through patience and care, he had earned respect from the most powerful being on this world. Kira approached, lowering her staff completely. The final step awaits, she said through the translator. Her tone was calm but serious. Nico nodded. He had prepared himself mentally and emotionally. He had learned to act with caution and thoughtfulness, and now he would face the final challenge. Zyra led him through the palace to a large observation chamber. The room overlooked the forests and crystal formations beyond. Nico could see creatures moving below, interacting with the environment in perfect harmony. Zyra crouched in the center and spoke through the translator. Your final test is to show your understanding of our world and the lives within it. You must demonstrate not only courage and intelligence, but also compassion and foresight. The task will be simple in words but challenging in meaning. Are you prepared? Nico bowed. I am ready. A small platform in the center of the room glowed softly. On it rested a device unfamiliar to him. It pulsed gently with energy, and around it floated several fragile creatures that seemed connected to the device. Zyra crouched beside it and gestured for him to observe. The creatures are part of our ecosystem, she explained. They maintain balance with the device. If disturbed, it could harm them and the environment. You must approach carefully and interact without causing harm. This task will show whether you truly understand the lessons of patience, respect, and connection. Nico approached slowly. He studied the creatures and the device carefully, noting how they moved and interacted. He lowered himself slightly, crouching in a gesture he had learned from Zyra. The creatures observed him without fear. He extended his hand slowly, careful not to startle them. A soft hum resonated from the device. Nico realized that it responded to touch and presence. He did not move recklessly. Instead, he allowed the creatures to guide him, observing their behavior and adjusting his actions accordingly. His heart pounded, but he remained calm, mindful of every movement. The creatures moved around him, some brushing against his hands lightly. He felt a sense of awe. Their trust was fragile, yet he could sense it growing. Nico realized that this moment symbolized the bond between humans and Zyra's people. Through careful observation, respect, and understanding, trust could be built across even the greatest differences. Suddenly, one creature floated toward the edge of the platform, heading toward a dangerous area. Nico acted quickly but gently. He extended his hand in a protective gesture, guiding the creature back without touching it directly. The device pulsed softly, and the other creatures responded by staying closer to him. Zyra's eyes glowed softly. She crouched slightly and gestured with one hand. The translator spoke her words. You act with care, not force. You understand without speaking. You show foresight and respect. This is the essence of our values. Nico felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had completed the final test, not through aggression or strength, but through patience, understanding, and compassion. He realized that this was the true measure of greatness. Humans could inspire respect and trust not by dominating, but by acting with thoughtfulness and care. Kira stepped forward and lowered her staff completely. You have succeeded, she said through the translator. The bond has begun. Your people may be trusted if they follow your example. Zyra crouched fully, reaching out her hand. Nico mirrored her gesture and touched her hand gently. A quiet energy seemed to flow between them. It was a gesture of trust and alliance, symbolizing the potential for cooperation between humans and her people. She spoke again. You have proven courage, intelligence, and compassion. You have learned our ways and respected our lives. The bond between your people and ours begins today. Go with our blessing, human, and share what you have learned. Nico felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had achieved something extraordinary. He had represented humanity not through power or technology, but through respect, understanding, and thoughtfulness. The lessons of this planet and its people would guide him and his people in the years to come. He turned toward the palace gates, carrying the crystal he had retrieved during his first test. The creatures in the courtyard watched him with quiet curiosity. He bowed to them, a silent gesture of appreciation for their trust. Some of the creatures moved closer, brushing gently against him before retreating. Nico smiled quietly, realizing that the bond extended beyond Zyra to all life on this planet. Outside, the forests and floating crystals glowed softly in the alien sunlight. Nico took a deep breath, absorbing the beauty and harmony of the world around him. He had arrived as a visitor, yet he was leaving with a profound understanding of what humans could be. Respect, patience, courage, and empathy were the keys to building bridges, even across galaxies. As he prepared to board his ship, Zyra crouched at the edge of the landing platform. Her eyes glowed softly, reflecting pride and trust. Nico stepped forward and extended his hand. She touched it gently, a final gesture of mutual respect. Kira stood nearby, her staff lowered. The other members of Zyra's people watched silently. The bond had been formed. Humans had shown their potential, and in return, the aliens had extended their trust and guidance. Nico boarded the ship carefully, ensuring the crystal and data he had gathered were secure. He looked back at the palace and the glowing forests. Zyra's figure remained visible, crouched slightly as if watching him depart with a silent blessing. He smiled, knowing that this gesture would remain with him always. As the ship lifted off, the planet grew smaller beneath him, its colors shifting in the sunlight. Nico felt a sense of hope and responsibility. Humanity had been given an example to follow. Courage, intelligence, and empathy could inspire respect and trust even among the most powerful civilizations. He activated the ship's communication system and transmitted a message to Earth. He shared the knowledge, the lessons, and the experiences he had gained. Humans would see that true greatness was not measured by power alone, but by the ability to understand, respect, and connect. As the stars stretched out before him, Nico reflected on his journey. Zara's crouch, once mysterious, had become a symbol of mutual respect and understanding. The creatures, the palace, and the tests had all taught him the value of patience and empathy. He knew that humanity had much to learn, but also much to offer. The journey was complete, yet it was only the beginning. Nico looked forward to the day when humans and Zara's people could meet again, not as strangers, but as allies and friends. The galaxy was vast, but connections like these could change the course of history. With one last glance at the planet, Nico set the ship on its course home. The bond had been formed. Humanity had shown its potential, and through patience, courage, intelligence, and empathy, the stars no longer seemed distant. They seemed reachable, connected by the actions of those who chose to understand and respect life in all its forms. As the ship moved through space, Nico felt a quiet confidence. He had proven that humans could rise to the challenge, not through force alone, but through wisdom, courage, and compassion. The lessons of this planet, the bond with Zara, and the trust of her people would guide humanity for generations. The journey had ended, but the story of connection and respect would continue. Nico knew that the path of humanity was just beginning, and that with each choice, each act of courage and care, humans could inspire trust and hope across the galaxy. And so, with the stars before him and the lessons of Zara's world in his heart, Nico set his course home, carrying not just knowledge, but the promise of a future built on respect, courage, and understanding.